Leading to the House. Thank you.
I call Andrew Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. On behalf of New Zealand First, I take a call in the Taxation, Annual Rates, Employee Allowances and Remedial Matters Bill. And in that respect, New Zealand First, with a great deal of caution, will be supporting this to go through to Select Committee for the fact that we believe it does need the light of day, and it does need comprehensive analysis, and it does need widespread public submission on it. An up-to-date, fair and effective tax system, Mr Speaker, is fundamental to our democracy. This is a significant and complex bill that covers an extensive range of tax matters. The public must have their say in this legislation, and in New Zealand First we will be closely scrutinising the detailed provisions of the bill. One aspect we will be paying close attention to, Mr Speaker, is the intergovernmental agreement with the United States on the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, known as FACTA. We will need to have clear information on what is actually intended through this IGA and how many New Zealanders are affected also as a result. We'll be looking for answers to many questions. For instance, has a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis been done on this intergovernmental agreement? Just how will New Zealanders with, quote, US connections, unquote, be affected? We'll need to know in whose interests such an IGA really is. Is it in our interest, or is it in the real interests of the United States? We'll want to know who has been consulted over the FACTA aspects of this bill. Will New Zealand's sovereignty be impacted in any way as a result of this legislation? Will New Zealand's privacy and human rights legislation be affected in any way? Will there be snooping on citizens within New Zealand because they have some US connection? And does this therefore open the door for monitoring or surveillance or entering into people's private lives in New Zealand because they may have some connection with the United States? These will be some of the questions that we'll be fleshing out and requiring the government to answer. There are hosts of questions, and the Minister must be accountable for them. We do not want another situation where in years to come we find that there has been undue intrusion into people's private lives as a result of a foreign country perhaps dabbling in our own internal affairs. Back in New Zealand, in terms of this bill, there are also implications in terms of employee allowances and employer-provided accommodation allowances and other payments provided by employers to employees in terms of their reimbursement is under scrutiny in this Act. Again, we would question some of the rationale behind that, and again, this government says that it is trying to reduce compliance costs and costs of doing business in this country. But is it reducing compliance costs, and is it providing the right message to business and employers and corporate New Zealand if this government is going to go after staff and executives being remunerated or compensated for accommodation while undertaking their business? And as we've heard other speakers say, this is not necessarily a perk. It comes with the job. People travel on behalf of their companies, on behalf of their organisations, away from their families, away from their wives, their husbands, their partners. It's not all glamour. Most of it is hard graft. And for companies and employees to start being monitored in terms of whether that is seen as a private benefit, it starts to again move into the era, as the government did earlier this year, where it looked at bringing in a car park tax for Auckland and Wellington CBDs. And again, it was found that the $18 million revenue that the government was going to secure from that particular tax was going to cost the company something in the order of $30 million in costs to provide the $18 million of revenue to the government. It was a total nonsense, and the government withdrew on that occasion. Again, if this is going to create undue burden on companies to monitor accommodation and employee-provided accommodation while people are conducting their business, will it be another situation where the costs simply outweigh the value of it to New Zealand business? So, Mr Speaker, there are a lot of aspects to this bill. It's quite complex, and we just look forward to it going to Select Committee and really being drilled down into. And we look forward to it going to the Select Committee and for it being drilled down into and all the various facets of it being exposed. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Kate Wilkinson.
Mr Speaker, and it's a pleasure for me to take a